My name is Mark and I will be doing the basic training within AutoCAD. You will notice at the top it shows you AutoCAD Electrical, but the interface is the same as your normal AutoCAD that you will work with. I have changed it in accordance to that, so it is basically the same as your normal AutoCAD. Right, I'm going to get cracking. So here I'm going to open up a template. You'll see I've got a sample 2D or a sample 3D that I'm working with. If you're wanting to open up a template, go straight through into the templates here. You can open up an ACAD d.dwt. For our purposes, that'll be suitable. Right, it opens up and you will notice that there's a grid. The grid pattern is 0.5 by 0.5. Now this grid pattern can be changed at the bottom, so we can look. You will see there's a grid display. I can switch that off and on, but if I'm going to change it, what I generally do is either come to the other side, switch that on, go to Snap Settings, and it'll come up with my settings. Note here we've got a snap on. You can change the setting here. I can change this over to maybe a 2 mil, and it depends where you add. You could be working with inches, you can be working with millimeters, metric. Okay, yeah, we can change this one to a 1 mil if you like. Right, it'll change it, and you'll notice here every major line, so this is grid snap, but every major line it's going to be every 5 increment basically. So it's your increment spacing here that we're looking at. So every 2 mil you'll notice the change, and I'm going to show you within. If I'm going to draw up a line, you'll notice that the change then is in effect. So that's 2 mil. Every major line would be a major line, the definite line. Let me escape that so you can see the definite line. Okay, you might not pick that up on the recording, however I can see this quite plainly here, where my lines, which are a little lighter, those are not major lines, but the dark lines are my major lines. So every 5, so you've got every 1 mil spaced. Okay, so it'll snap. There's a grid X snap and a grid Y snap. So you will notice here on it, grid spacing, grid X 1 mil, grid Y 1 mil. So a major line every 5 millimeters is what we're looking at there. Okay. Our snap spacing will be every 2 mil. Okay, I can change this, so we can change that back to maybe a 0.5. So you'll see the difference here. When I state snapping, it acts like a magnet. So if I'm going to state line again, you will notice that it actually snaps between. So this is every 0.5 it snaps to. It acts like a magnet. It's going to snap the line that you're wanting to draw through to every 0.5 on this space. Okay, so the space that we're working with is known as model space, and we have layouts at the bottom as well. So these layouts are more like a paper basis that you're going to be working with. Alright, I'm going to switch this grid off. Please take note, as soon as you go over it with the mouse, you'll see that it actually says there grid mode F7. So I can switch it on using F7, or I can switch it off. And it's going to do this with various other tools at the bottom as well. So F9 also switches off the snap to. Okay, so I'm going to click on F9, press F9 and off. That my F9 is not working right now. Okay, now let's begin at the bottom. Here we've got our coordinates, and what the coordinates do, basically we've got 0.000, which on the y-axis and x-axis, if you ever work with geometry, you have a y-axis and an x-axis. That then will give us a 0 point where the x and the y intercept each other. If you look at the z-plane, the z-plane will be, if I do that, you'll notice there's a z-plane as well. This is with a 3D going into the z-plane, but we're not working with 3D right now. This is only a 2D plane that I'm working with at the moment. Okay, so here it shows you with the coordinates. As soon as I go onto the X, it'll show you that while moving it, it goes up 1, 2, 3. The Y coordinate, as soon as I go up into the Y coordinate, it also moves. But then when I work in the Z coordinate, you'll see that also moves up as well in space. Alright, so it just gives you units as far as where you're working. This is extremely useful when you've got a template up as far as like a border, and you wanting to work within the border. Some companies will actually make sure that you don't use the mouse and you just utilize your keyboard. And how we will do that, you can type in the various commands like line, press enter, and then you can type in where exactly you want this to be. So you would state maybe you want it at 1 mil from your X and Y intercept where it's 0, 0, 0. Okay, so I'm going to take it 1 and I say comma 1. Okay, and press enter. So it's going to start at 1, 1. Alright, and now I can then draw a line utilizing the keyboard. So if I state 10 mil and at 0 degree or at 5 degrees or whatnot, I can then state tab 5 degrees, enter. Okay, so that's at 5 degrees. Press escape. Okay, I'm using my mouse at the moment. I've gone back to my mouse just to show you exactly that the line is the 5 mil. Okay, if I go across, it's showing you 10 mil across. Okay, that's, so it's not exactly 5 mil that it went. Sorry, it was 10 mil. That's correct, it's 5 degrees. So yeah, right. Now on our mouse, just to let you know before we carry on, our mouse has got the middle button which I can zoom in and I can zoom out. If I double click on that mouse, it will then zoom extend. You can do the same within the side, on the side little toolbar here, we've got zoom extend. So if I go into the one corner of the zoom into the one corner and then I click on zoom extend, it's going to zoom extend. That means that the whole line can be shown. This can be shown also within if I draw up a nice little rectangle and then I'm going to zoom in to this portion here. If I click on zoom extends, it goes right out. If I'm wanting to click on the window, I can click on the window and I can zoom in again using a window. I find this extremely useful when we are working with AutoCAD, because you might want to zoom into a specific component but you are not. You sometimes use your scroll in the middle. So if I'm going to go into that component there, or a smaller whatever component might be on a PC board or whatnot, you want to zoom in. And if you are going to be zooming in using your scroll, sometimes it doesn't really work that nicely. So I'll then go over to the window and I can zoom into an area, hone in on that area as many times as I want. So I can go into that until it's extremely small. So, and again, use the middle button, so the middle scroll button, double click it and it'll zoom extends for you. Right, your left click is your select button. Okay, so I can select if I'm not in any one of the tools, so if I'm not in any command, if I'm not utilizing polyline, line or whatnot, I can then click on the space and it'll then select. I want you to just take note, whatever's in the blue, that type of a selection is going to select whatever is in that definite blue space. Okay, so if I've just selected that, it's going to be fine. However, if I select a corner, it does not select. Okay, Now in AutoCAD you've got different ways of selecting. If I click at the bottom, you'll see, and go towards the top left, you'll see that it turns out green, and that green is going to allow me, with a dashed line, it just shows me I can select whatever, and if it's just touching the line, it's going to select the line. Okay, so there, that shows that it will select the line. A different way of selecting as well, if I'm going to select something that needs to just touch the line, and I can keep hold my finger on the left click, and I can then select whatever I'm needing to select. Now that's extremely useful if you understand how to utilize that properly. I've not used it too much myself, so my preference would be just to select normal. Okay, I'm going to delete everything there. Okay, the right button on the mouse is going to allow me to go into just quick tool, like right click. I can go into various tools here, and see quick select, quick calc, so calculator and whatnot. I can then, I can do some calculations on here and whatnot. Right. Okay, down at the bottom, I want you to quickly look at the command line here. This command line, you have to always keep an eye on the command line. If I select, let me say for instance, circle, it will then tell me exactly how to work with a circle. So it tells me to specify the center point. So I specify the center point, and now it tells me that I need to specify the radius of the circle or the diameter. If I'm wanting to specify the diameter, I can type in the diameter, I can type D, enter, or I can select D over there. So if your drawing requests that you need to place in diameter, you select the D, or type in D, enter, and that'll then allow me to place in a diameter. Okay, so I've just placed in 100 mm diameter. Okay, notice I've just read what it stated at the bottom. Okay, so I could select whatever it's showing me, 3 points, 2 points, then my tangent radius. That's what the different types of circles that I'm going to be selecting, well, can select within my drawing. Okay, so within these tools here, make sure first of all that you read your command line. Look at the bottom here. These tools are very important because sometimes you will be needing to do something, snap to a specific point. I'll show you how to do that quickly within AutoCAD, that you don't need to worry too much about the snapping and whatnot. And then it's just going to allow you to do your snap modes and whatnot. Right, if I go to the next point here, we've got a dynamic input. If I place dynamic input off and I select a line, you'll notice that I can type in maybe 80 mm or whatnot, but I have to read my command line to actually see that that input is accepted. Then I press enter and it's there. However, if I place in my dynamic input and select the line, you'll see that I can type it in here, 80, and it will then allow me to see it directly on the screen. Okay, so that's dynamic input. The same thing would apply within if I'm going to do the same. So let me type in 30 mm, and if I'm going to place in a degree, I can then press tab and then place in 30 degrees. Or whatever degree that you are requesting or requiring. Press escape. Escape is your best friend. It gets you out of the commands that you are utilizing. You might be in a command that, whether it be whatever command that you're in, and you're wanting to get out of it, press escape, that's going to be fine, or right click and press enter. So there's different types of ways of escaping the command. Okay, sometimes you don't even have the right click enter at the at certain given times. Okay, right next to that there's the ortho mode. Ortho mode just means it's at 90 degrees that you're going to be able to draw lines. So if I'm going to draw a line at 90 degrees, let's put ortho on. Okay, so it's only showing me 90 degrees that I can work with. So 90 degree lines that I can work with. Okay, however, if I'm going to snap to a point, you'll notice that it automatically snaps to the point. Okay, escape. The next is polar tracking. The polar tracking I like to utilize because I can work with my degrees as well as the lines and whatnot. Okay, so when I start to do the polar, I can then have any degree that I'm working with. Right. It has a small little arrow next to it. If you click on that, you can then select degrees, and if you go into your tracking setting, you can actually set a special type of degree that you're working with. So it might be that you're working with 29 degrees or 27 degrees. You can set it to the 27 degree where it will then go to, it'll snap to the degree. Alright, and how does it snap to the degree? If I go 45, I'm going to just show you how we do that. And I'm going to select the line, and as I go to the 45 degree mark, you'll see it goes, there's this green line that comes up. It's a dashed line, and that allows me then to go to those degrees. It's very helpful, and that's accurate as far as degrees is concerned. Okay, the next one, the next little icon there is isometric drafting. So if you want to work on a 2D plane, draw up a 3D drawing on a 2D plane, you can draw an isometric. That'll allow you to do that, so it goes through to 30, 60 degrees. If you worked on the drawing board, it's quite nice when you've got isometric drawing there that you can use. The following line would, the following icon is showing us our object snap tracking. Okay, I place that on when it comes to snapping to different objects. Right next to that is on snap, your object snap, which is on as well. If I go into that, you will see that we've got endpoints, midpoints, centers. I've selected nodes, intersection, and perpendicular. I want to show you how we can use this very effectively when if you're wanting to isolate a particular snapping point. Okay, so just quickly we can do that. If I'm going to select the line, you'll notice as soon as I come over to the line, it goes green with a green little block. If I go over to the midpoint, it goes over to a little triangle, and the same thing would apply with the other as well. So whatever lines, if I go over to the circle, it then snaps to the center. Okay, so if I then click now, left click, it automatically snaps to the center, and I'm then able to draw a line from the center of the circle. Okay, so that's my automatic snapping to. So now if I'm wanting to draw a line that is to the tangent of my circle, okay, what I do is I press Control and I right click, and then I will select my tangent. It'll then select the tangent, well, it'll snap to the tangent. That's a very useful tool. So I can go around this circle and draw a line that is to the tangent of the circle itself. Right. Okay, just remember that. Control right click when you are in your command, like the line command. If we're in a 2D, yeah, let's go line command again. Control right click will then get us into basically the snapping, where I can then isolate whatever type of snap I'm wanting, whether it be tangent, quadrants, or endpoints, or whatnot. Okay, press escape. Okay, if I go into with a little arrow down there, I go to object snap settings, I can set everything here. Within the settings, note that we can also go over to the different various tabs here, which will then allow us also just to change some settings over there. So sometimes I noted with some of the students that I've had in the past, the temptation to go into the various settings here and to change whatever is there. So where they've not utilized AutoCAD, they'll go into the different tabs here, change the settings, and then press OK, and then wonder what's gone wrong in their drawing. So it is an issue sometimes. So just watch what types of settings you then utilize if you're wanting to do that. Just watch what settings you place on. Next to that, the icon there is showing our line weights. When I place in line weights, you'll notice that this has to do with the type of layer. If my layers, okay, what is a layer? A layer is basically the lines that I'm using. If I go new layer, I'm just going to do a new layer quickly, and I'm going to state outline. I'm going to go over to the color. Let's change this over to a bright color, so cyan. I'm going to use cyan. And I'm going to look at the line weight. So here we've got our line weights. We can change the line weight to, let me change it to a 0.7. Okay, that's an ISO standard. Alright, so 0.7, I can print it, or I don't need to print it. So I'll click that little printing icon there, which will then switch it off or on. So when I print out a drawing with this layer in it, it does not show on the actual print itself. Okay, that's if I'm wanting to, I can do that. It can be, yeah, you can switch it on and off. Right, now I'm going to draw a line using that layer. So I've selected the layer. You can see that the layer has come out thick there. Now I'm going to draw the line, and you'll see that the line is thicker. If I switch the line weight off, I can switch it off and on. It then shows it as thick or as thin. The next icon is my Snap UCS to activate the solid plane. Okay. Dynamic UCS. I like to place that one on. Alright. And then after that we've got our annotation. Okay, so the show annotation objects, this I use with my layouts, the various layouts. So, and you'll see there is also scale and annotation scale. So annotation scale, I prefer utilizing just the scales on the layouts and having my annotation then set to the layouts, and various, if I've got different windows in the layouts and various dimensions with sized text, different sized text. And what do I mean by that? If I've got a 3mm size text or a 5mm size text, I can then place that onto the layout, which is basically your paper layout. It's pretty much the same as in Word, where you've got a page setup. You then have got various text heights. Now that text height I can place in onto the layout, and it comes out nicely on the layout as that text height. Okay, so using these different types of tools, this is a little bit more advanced. I will address that when we come to it later on. Right next to that is the cogwheel, the icon of the cogwheel. Okay, it has got a little arrow pointing down next to it. When we click on that arrow, you'll see Draft Annotation, 3D Basics, 3D Modeling. If I'm going to click on either one of these, it's going to change my interface. Now it changed the interface so that I can utilize 3D modeling or my basic modeling, or drafting annotation, which would just be the standard 2D. Okay. Right. Okay, at that point there, if you are wanting to get any or utilize any other types of, or customize, I will then go right up to the end right side at the bottom and click on there's 3 little lines, and it's going to show me whether I can, if I'm wanting to switch off certain things, or so I can customize this as much as what I can. If you switch on everything, it's not really useful. If you're switching on everything, just utilize what you need. You want simple tools to get the job done effectively and at a very fast pace. And that is ultimately what you are wanting. Alright, these two I'm not going to explain for now, but I want to just go to the hardware acceleration. I'm going to place my hardware acceleration. I'm going to click it. Okay, so it's showing me that it's off for now. Okay, if I right click here, it says graphic performance. So if I click on that, it shows me my graphics performance. I can place it on, and it's going to show me smooth line display, all of these various things that it tells me that's going to be displaying. I can click off 1 or 2 of these if I'm wanting, so it's going to help with the graphics. Right. Okay. I don't need my one on for now, so I'm going to switch that off. Okay. If we come up to the top, we have these tabs at the top here. You'll see the Home tab, Inserts, Annotation, Parametrics or Parametric, View, Manage, Output, Add-ins, A360, Feature Apps, BIM, you name it. Now, if I right-click within that area here, so any area there, I can right-click, I can go over to the different tabs. I can switch on some of the tabs if I'm not wanting to use, let's say for instance you don't have view, so you'll see here if I switch it off, my view goes away, so the view tab goes away. I like to have my view tab on, so I'm going to place my view tab on. You see it comes up there. So sometimes you don't have specific tabs that you're needing. You might be a little bit frustrated because it might be the very tab that you need. Like for instance, if I'm going into view, I can go into that tab, I can utilize viewports and whatnot, but if I don't have view here, then I can't utilize the viewports. I'm going to have to do it, look at it another way. Okay, back in the Home tab, I will start on the Draw tools and the Modify tools, Annotation. Okay, I think we'll only be able to get through the Draw and the Modify tool within the lesson now. Okay, alright, you know about the standard line, but if I go over it, you will see that it'll just show me how this thing's going to work. I can draw lines. These are just segments. Note, these lines are individual lines. It's not one continuous line. I can join the lines, so I can draw lines all over the show, and then note if I right click, press enter, it then comes out of the command. You'll see each line I have to separately select. If I'm wanting to join it, I'll have to go over to the Modify tool and click on Join to join. Okay, so I'm going to select my polyline. And polyline is very useful. Remember, always read the bottom, your command line. So it says that I must specify the start point. So I'm going to specify the start point. Then it says specify the next point, so I can specify the next point. However, I can also look at arc, half width, length, undo, or width. So, alright, let's make this a 30 mm, enter. Okay, now that's a segment line, so it's just a straightforward line. If I use polyline and draw up as many lines as I'm wanting, let's also place in an arc so that you can see. Okay, let's click enter. This is one continuous line. Alright, the other useful thing with polyline is if I'll click on the start point, and you'll notice here that it says width. Now it says that we need to specify the starting width, and it's got a default which is 0. So I'm going to specify the starting width as 1 or 0. Let's start it at 0, enter, and let's end width at 5. You'll notice it's now an arrowhead. Take that to 20 mm, and there's my little arrowhead. Okay, it's a big arrowhead. Select that, delete. Once I go back into polyline, you will see that it's automatically a width of 5. So we change it. I'm going to select the width again, or just type in W for width and enter. Specify the starting width, 0, enter, and the ending width, 0, enter. Once again, I can complete that. Right, very useful tool with the polyline. Right, one other thing that we can do with polyline is if I right click over here, okay, I've got snap overrides. You'll see arc, close, half width, length, undo, width, so I can go through to any of these as well. Alright, so there's various tools that I can work with. Okay, coming over to the circle. Right, so we've got a radius. We can work with our radius. We can work with diameter, 2-point, 3-point, tangent, tangent, radius, and then tangent, tangent, tangent. So I'm going to quickly go through these. Our standard circle with a radius, I'm going to give it a radius of 20, and then I'm going to select the diameter, okay, and I'm going to give this a diameter 20 so you can see the difference. Next one, 2-point. Remember, always read what it states at the bottom. Specify the first point, so I can specify the first point here. Let's zoom in and specify the next point over there. So that's between the 2 points. That's like diameter, but not exactly diameter. Alright, so it's not the center point that I'm selecting, it's just first point, second point. 3-point circle. So if I go over through to, let's take this one here. Okay, midpoints. It's going to be quite a big circle. Right, 3 points. You will notice that the line will intersect the various lines, so at the points that you've selected. if I select tangent, tangent, radius, so the first tangent here, the second tangent here, and the radius, then I'm going to give it 10 mil. Okay, so 10 mil radius, I can then place that in. Tangent, 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 so the line that I'm selecting, line I'm selecting, and line that I'm selecting, and it's going to give me a circle that then touches the tangents, so that all touches the lines that are at tangent to the circle. Right. Okay. The arc command. What you can do is play around with the various commands. You'll see that there's a lot more when you click on the little arrow, and it also depends on how you work with AutoCAD. I like to figure out tools that I can work with at a faster rate. So the tools that I've got that I use for industry purposes, it's just to make sure that the drawings are done at a very fast pace. Okay, so if it's just standard AutoCAD that you're working with, your tools are important to you that you're working with, and make sure you know how to use them. It's like going to battle with a gun, but you don't know how to use a gun, right? So utilize the various tools effectively, but the ones that you can utilize, use it effectively, if that makes sense. Alright. Okay, now we've got spleen fit. The spleen fit, it's helpful when it comes to things like cams. If you're drawing a 2D cam, I know some of the packages like Inventor, you'll use Inventor to draw up various components in the mechanical field. However, if you are drawing a 2D drawing and you're wanting to utilize AutoCAD for it, or if your company only uses AutoCAD, then you will see the spleen fit various, for various cams can be used. Alright, so you can see spleen fit. When I select it, it allows me to draw up curves, various types of curves, which will then, it'll just help with the cams on a 2D plane, basically. Another type of spleen that uses these, I can't think of the word right now. Okay, here we go. Control vertices. Okay, so the control vertices, these are the control vertices that you are using. I can control how this thing will look by using the control vertices, or I can then select the fit. It'll then go over to points on the line that I can then use to do the same thing. The construction line for 2D purposes is very, very useful. And what I like doing with construction line is I will right click and select horizontal, or I will then select at the bottom, and I can then place in horizontal lines at various points. So I can select points on a drawing that I'm busy with, and then so the horizontal lines, if I'm going to be drawing a side view, whether it's third angle or first angle orthographic projection, I can use these construction lines quite effectively to draw up the drawing on the side view, or whatever view you're wanting to draw. Okay. Note, if I select vertical, I can do the same. Okay. If I select angle, I can place in the angle, let's say 45 degrees. I can then place in an angle. Okay. If I'm wanting to just place in a line, I then select a point. Wherever I'm wanting to select, I can snap to a point, and I can draw the line at whatever angle. Same thing, very similar would be my ray. From a point, it's got a continuous line which goes, as far as AutoCAD is concerned, into infinity and beyond. Multiple points is the next icon here within the draw tool. When I select the multiple points, okay, you will notice that there's only small little points. I can change these by going over to my utilities and ID point. So when I select, my point style, I'll select something like that, and it'll then change it to so that I can see exactly where these little points are. Okay, so multiple points allows me to place in the various points. When I have a line, so I'm going to draw a nice little line. I'm going to divide this line up. My next tool that I'm using is basically divide. Select your line, type in how much or how many points you want on that line, and it'll place in the points for you. Use node, and it'll then allow you to snap to those points. So if you're going to copy those points over, we can do so. Okay, the last one was a little bit of a fail. There we go. Right, I'm going to stop at that point there and go on to the next tools, because I want to complete this. I want to finish up on my draw toolbar. If we look at our rectangle, place in a rectangle, standard rectangle, you'll notice that there is a we'll specify the next point. So it's a diagonal line that I'm going to be looking at, and if I type in whether it's going to be 10 mil or whether it's going to be 100, I can then type that in. It is the diagonal line directly from one point to the next point on the rectangle itself that we are measuring at 100. However, if I'm going to be placing in a rectangle, I can place in the dimension. So if I type D, or go down to the bottom here and say D, the length I'll place in, so let's say 10 mil, enter, and the width I'll place in 5 mil. Okay, now select the quadrant where you would want to place this rectangle, and there is your rectangle. If you look over it, you select it and you go over to one of the I call it a selection point, you will see that there it shows you 10 and 5. So if you're wanting to quickly know what your dimensions are on a component, you can select the component and go over to these little selecting points and then see exactly what are the sizes on the object that you've drawn up. From rectangle, I can also go to polygon. Okay, in the polygon, this is 4 sides. That's going to be straightforward square. But if I'm wanting to place in a hexagonal for the nuts or whatnot, I can start either inscribed in a circle or circumscribed about a circle. You can then place that in. So that's in accordance to the circle size or whatever you are using. Our ellipses, we have our center ellipse. This will just tells you, okay, you need to select your center. So read at the bottom what it states. The ellipse, specify the center of the ellipse. So if that's the center of the ellipse, so the end point of the axis, okay, So if you're going to your x-axis first or your y-axis, and then your y-axis, and it'll draw up your ellipse for you. You will see your axis end. So that's 3 points, 1, 2, 3. So you will see if I'm wanting to do a smaller type of ellipse, you get used to the various ways that AutoCAD allows you to draw. Note, when we draw within AutoCAD, all these various tools allows you to be quite versatile within other packages as well. So if you've got MicroStation, you will see that these tools are pretty much the same in MicroStation as well, and you kind of figure it out quite quickly. If you are used to typing everything out in AutoCAD, it's going to cause a bit of a problem, because really and truthfully, when you go over to another package, it really doesn't help if I'm just typing everything out. But if you are working AutoCAD and you're using the interface, it helps you quite a bit when you then go over through to the various packages. Right. The elliptical arc, I find it not as user-friendly, so I don't enjoy using the elliptical arc as much. Okay, so you'll see here. Okay, so it's going to give me an arc from that point to that point. I find it not as user-friendly, so I won't use it as much myself. Our hatching component, if you click on hatch, and I want to click within this area here, so I've clicked in that area, you'll see it comes up quite hectic as far as the hatching is concerned. If I'm wanting to change my scale, I can change the scale over here, press enter. Let's change it a little bit more. Okay, 50. Doesn't look like it's changing much. Okay, so you can see if I change the scale, it allows me to then change what the distance between your hatch lines. That's better. Okay. If I'm wanting to select a various pattern from the hatching patterns, I can do so as well. Okay. Right. As well as you can play around with all the various things here that they've got. I find when it comes to just being practical out in industry, try and use as minimal tools as possible, not try and fiddle around with different other types of tools unless it is necessary for me to understand it, like transparency or whatnot, to be able to work within specific industries. You will see here gradient and boundary. Please play around with these various components. Remember to read what it states at the bottom, and when you're in the interface, like for instance the hatching, your interface changes over here at the top, so your toolbar actually is completely different. So look at what it does. Try and keep it simple, especially with the basics when it comes to the basics. And yeah, think that will then conclude on our lesson for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please make comments in the comments below. Yeah, and tell me what you think.